You know, darlings, in many ways and little things, the times we're living through now are quite like the restless hours and uncertain times in which F. Scott Fitzgerald's fascinating people lived their glittering moments. Charles Boyer joins me now in retelling here on The Big Show one of Scott Fitzgerald's most poignant stories from his work, All the Sad Young Men. Here is The Adjuster.
My mission is to heal those who are hurt. But my treatment takes time. I do the best I can, but I promise nothing at all. I remember well a whole generation I had as a patient. It was called the 20s. Remember the 20s? They lived and they were already damned. They danced and they drank and they played as if yesterday had never been, as if tomorrow were a lie. There was a sweet sadness in the air, an ineffable sadness that belongs somehow to the young. You heard it in the tea-time music at the Ritz of 1920, heard it in the gossip of irresponsible young women like Luella Hempel.
No, Edie. I do love my husband. Well, I hope I haven't given you that impression with all this talk. As a matter of fact, I cried myself to sleep last night. Because I know we're drifting slowly but surely to divorce. What? Well, most of the time we eat in restaurants, hotels, speakeasies. You know, Edie, I'm not going to be tied down to housekeeping. Of course, John hates it. In fact, he hates everything I like. Well, that's just too bad. I sat home long enough while the baby was on the way, while I was nursing him. But now I'm sorry for John, Edie, but I'd rather he be unhappy than me. No, darling, you mustn't pay the check, Edie. I've got the money right here. Oh, goodness, it's late. Oh, dear, we've got to run.
Have you already sat in judgment upon Luella Hempel? Do not, I beg of you, do not be hasty. Remember, you must give her time. Yet, I promise nothing at all.
Is that you, Luella?
Yes, John. Sorry to be late.
I brought someone home to dinner. This is Dr. Moon. This is my wife.
Well, good evening, Mrs. Hempel. I hope I'm not interfering with any arrangement of yours.
Oh, not at all. I'm delighted you're coming to dinner. We're quite alone.
Such a nice house, Mrs. Hempel. And let me congratulate you on your fine little boy.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Moon. Do you specialize in children?
Oh, I'm not a specialist at all. I'm about the last of my kind, a general practitioner.
The last in New York, anyhow. In fact, Luella...
John, stop rubbing your face.
Oh, I'm sorry, Luella. As I was saying, I invited Dr. Moon here tonight because I wanted him to have a talk with you.
Talk with me?
Well, Dr. Moon's an old friend of mine, and I think he can tell you a few things, Luella, that you ought to know.
Oh, well, I don't see exactly what you mean. There's nothing the matter with me. I don't believe I've ever felt better in my life.
Well, excuse me. I've a letter to write.
I'm terribly sorry, Dr. Moon. Obviously, my husband is not himself tonight.
Well, he has told me a great deal about your satisfactory life together. I wonder if I can be of any help in smoothing things out.
Well, I can't imagine what John has told you, Dr. Moon, but I'd much prefer to discuss something else.
Oh, don't be afraid, Mrs. Hempel.
Oh, I'm not in the least afraid of you, Dr. Moon.
Tell me about your trouble.
I'll do no such... Didn't you see him rubbing his face? Are you blind? He's becoming so irritating to me that I think I'll go mad.
I see.
No, you don't see. Don't you see I've had enough of home? Don't you see how bored I am with keeping house, with the baby, everything? I want excitement. And I don't care what form it takes or what I pay for it as long as it makes my heart beat.
I see.
You don't see. Oh, I tried to be good, and I'm not going to try anymore. If I'm one of those women who wreck their lives for nothing, then I'll do it now. You can call me selfish, silly, anything you like, and be quite right. But in 5 minutes, I'm going out of this house and begin to be alive. Well, what are you listening to? What did you say, something?
You're not going out. I'm sure you're not going out.
I am going out.
You see, Mrs. Hempel, your husband is not well. He's been trying to live your kind of life, and the strain has been too much for him. He does things like rubbing his face or...
Mrs. Hempel, can I speak to you privately? Oh, it's Mr. Hempel. He came into the kitchen and began throwing the food out of the icebox. Oh, it's horrible. He smashed things. Now he's crying and laughing so it tears your heart out. Oh, it's horrible.
His sudden shock can seem to last an eternity. Moments later, it is only an eon. Hours later, an era. Months later, an hour. It was so in the case of Luella Hempel. Mrs. Hempel, you seem well.
I am well, Dr. Moon. Thank you.
I congratulate you on the way you've taken hold of things.
But I haven't taken hold of things at all. I did what I have to do.
That's just it.
But the house isn't going. I have to discharge the servants, all but the nurse who doesn't know her business. And the baby's sick, and everything just as messy and terrible as it can be.
Well, would you mind telling me how you found out that the nurse doesn't know her business?
You find out various unpleasant things when you're forced to stay around a house. When you have to cook, clean, take care of a sick baby, tend to an invalid husband.
You've made progress, but I feel somewhat discouraged. As I told you, I promise nothing. I only do the best I can.
What do you mean? You've done nothing for me. Nothing at all.
Nothing yet, Mrs. Hempel. It takes time.
Oh, I've met your type before. For some reason, you think that you have a standing here as an old friend of the family. But I don't make friends quickly. And I haven't given you the privilege of being so personal with me. Now, if you'll excuse me, Dr. Moon, I have work to do. Mrs. Hempel, please, come quickly. Nurse, what is it? What's the matter? What's happened? Oh, no, not my baby. Not my baby.
Months look in the mirror and find themselves years. Yet somehow the heart is heedless of time. The heart is reluctant to yield. I needed patience with Mrs. Hempel. Mrs. Hempel.
You go away.
Your husband needs you.
I don't care.
You haven't anyone now but him.
I hate you.
If you like, I promised nothing, you know. I do the best I can. You'll be better when you realize that your baby is dead. That he has been dead for a long time.
You lie. You always lie. All right, my baby is dead. What shall I do now?
Your husband is much better. All he needs now is rest and kindness.
Perhaps you think you made him better, Dr. Moon.
Perhaps he is nearly well.
Well, his hair turned almost white. Yes, I'll go to him. I'll go to him in a minute. I'll leave him alone. You will. Get out! It's almost over now. I can go. I'm free. Free. Not that much up. Get everything ready. Then I'll see John up. I'll say goodbye.